Okay, great. Okay, great. Now, yep, it's perfect. So I am recording now. So this meeting will have all of my recorded responses, and I can share the and then I'll share the video with the team so that you can upload and add some subtitles if you want to. Okay, great. So anyways, as I said, this is fantastic to be a part of this meeting. Thank you all for showing up. We do have some questions that you asked ahead of time, and I do have the list here. But I would also like for you to ask the questions directly so that I can know which question belongs to which person. And it's okay if you want to ask the question in Korean, because we have the list here. I've already looked at them, and whether it's Minju or some of the other people from ICISTS or Hyesun as well, who should be on this call, they can also help with some translation if necessary. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, great. So Minju, why don't I let you start, and why don't you pick the questions, and pick the person asking the question, and I'll let you guide me through this.
Okay, just let me redo the list again. So, I think not all of the askers are present here, so I'll start with who is here. So, team 9 and 혹시 다들 이름 몇 팀인지 앞에다 붙여서 바꿔주실 수 있을까요? 네, 감사합니다.
Okay, I see how it works. So in the file with the questions, there's a team number, right?
Yeah, right. So,
Yep. Okay, there I can see that. That's a team number and the name. Let me look for the gallery to see. Okay. Now what I see here is 3 people from team 9, 4 people from team 9, team 5, 6, and 8. And then I see teams, the questions 28, 24, 25, 1, 28, 12, 29, 20. Okay, team 6. So team 6 is the one that has one. So team 6 is here and they had a question. So why don't we start with them? Hi, team 6. Is that Park Jin Young? How are you?
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining. I can see one question from your team here. How fluent is your team in English? Can we just have a little bit of a discussion in English, or do you guys need some translation?
네, 스피커 잡자. 듣는 건 다 되는데.
it's okay.
That's okay. We can have discussion with English.
Okay. Okay, great. So I see your question here. And basically what you were saying is that you saw a book called Sense Making, and their suggestion was that you should be observing people as much as possible, right? And your question was, how can you verify the realistic consumer needs? That's your question,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that this is probably one of the most important questions for entrepreneurship. How do you make sure that you are actually solving a real problem? And I would add that it's not just about solving a real problem, but it is solving a real problem that the customers are willing and able to pay for the solution.
Yes.
That phrase actually I took from Bill Outlet, the person who wrote the book I recommended, Disciplined Entrepreneurship. And that part is so important. It's not just about solving the problem, but if you want to be running a startup, if you are an entrepreneur, you are running a company that operates in the market for a profit. If you want to solve a problem that the customers are not willing or able to pay, then you should maybe try to get elected to government. And there's a lot of important problems that governments should solve. Or you could be running a nonprofit, right? So there are so many things that you could be doing. There are many problems that are not for startups to solve. So your job is find a real problem that customers are willing and able to pay. So now within that more narrow definition, the question still stands, okay, so how do I do that? And I'm going to walk you backwards because the way that you validate that the problem is something people are willing to pay, and this is going to be a horrible and scary answer, but the real way to validate that is make them pay for it. It's that simple, you know? Oh, should I go talk to investors? Well, they can give you some feedback, and it's important to get feedback from industry professionals. Oh, should I get the government to give me an award or a prize or this or that? There's a lot of things that you can do on that road that kind of help, but the real way that you can prove that you have solved a problem that is a real customer's need is by actually getting them to pay for it. So the best way is, and this is also another advice from Bill Outlet going along these lines, you have to ask yourself, what version of my product can I be selling in less than 1 year? So you have a really fancy product in your mind, but can you break it up into smaller pieces? And can you release, this is the concept of a minimum viable product. Okay, you have a very, very fancy product you want to sell, but what version, what feature of your product could you start selling today? Even if you sell it for like $1. So that's the first step. Find the most simple version of your product, put it on a website, and install a credit card payment system for people to pay. If your product is still not ready anyways, put up a credit card system, let them pay, and put a notice, we won't deliver this until 3 months later or 6 months later. Be honest with them. If your product solves a real problem, customers will pay ahead of time. They will do it. If you are solving a real problem that they really need to be solved, they will be willing to give you money ahead of time. There's another professor from, I think I mentioned this actually in the lecture maybe, but there's another professor from, there's another professor from Stanford, Chuck Easley, and what Chuck Easley says in his entrepreneurship course is just make a credit card payment for like 1 cent, 1 penny of $1, which here in Korea would be like shipwon or maybe like baegwon, you know? And so why? Because if you are very far from releasing, but today you make a page, you install a credit card system, and somebody actually inputs their credit card to pay you baegwon, that is proving they want the problem to be solved. That is proving that they trust you with their credit card information and that they believe in you as a company to solve that problem for them in the future. And that, I think, brings us to the second part that I would continue adding to your question, right? So your question is it a real problem? Well, you got to make sure that they are willing and able to pay. And I will add one more part to it. And you have to make sure that you can be the one to reach those customers. And there's two parts. Part number one, can you reach them with your message? And part number two, can you convince them to actually pay you? So this very simple credit card test, and it's a little bit scary, but be honest with your customers about how far away you are from the market, and be responsible with their money. Don't take their money and, with crowdfunding, people get into trouble all the time. They get the money from crowdfunding, they spend all the money from crowdfunding, and then at some point they can't deliver the product. Now you're in trouble, right? So if you do these kind of pre-sales, don't touch the money, because you have to leave the opportunity to yourself to give them a refund. Otherwise, if you burn your reputation on crowdfunding, it can be really hard. It's very public, and like your name will get put on social media. But if you are honest and you don't deliver and you give people a refund, well, they will say, hey, this is a great person, and you might get a second chance at it. So as long as you are honest with your customers and responsible with their money, I think it's very, very fair and very valid to just do that. You could do that in less than 1 week. Simple website showing the product you want to build with a credit card payment that lets people start paying you right away. Once those credit card payments come in, you can say, look, we thought it would sell, and here is the proof that it's actually selling. Full price is best. Small deposit is better. Now, sometimes that's not really possible. So an even more simple way of it is make a full advertisement for the product and tell them when you think it's going to be available, and let them just enter their email address. This version of proof is much, much weaker than an actual payment, but it's still valid to say, hey, look, we proposed a solution to a problem, and on the website, we are getting people who are registering their email address, and they're coming back to the website, and they are saying they would like to buy from us when it's available. Does that make sense?
Yes, I want to ask you something.
Sure, go ahead.
Then how many consumer we need to convince our product marketability?
That is a much more complicated question, because it really depends on your goals and your stage, and it depends on the price of your product. So I think a very big difference would be, why do you want to run this company? Would you be happy with a small company that pays you and your team comfortable salaries but doesn't grow very much? Then you don't need a big market. Or do you want and feel that you must make a large impact, and therefore you want to raise money from investors to grow quickly? So in the first case where you just want to run a comfortable company, is really simple. Make enough revenues that you can keep on paying your team salaries. And that's it. You do that for 20 years. Do that until you're ready to move on and retire. So it depends how big your team is. It depends on what is the price of your product. And then you will find, what is the profit per unit of your product. And then you will be able to know how many customers you need to have. In the case where you really want to have a large impact, well, then you've got to, at 500 startups, I remember thinking that your addressable market size has to be at least $50 million. And and this comes from disciplined entrepreneurship. For a high growth business, this is not a value, but a ratio. The ratio should be that your cost of customer acquisition should be less than 1/3 of your long-term value per customer. And if you're not familiar with these terms, they are very well described in the book that I recommended. That's why I love that book, because for those of you, these are common terms for business models. So basically, your cost of customer acquisition is not just how much does it cost you to produce your product, but how much does it cost you to do the sales, marketing, and customer service for your customer. And then once you count that's your whole cost of customer acquisition, then your customer might not just purchase one time. your customer might be purchasing multiple times. And so what is your expectation for your customer to purchase in the long run? And what are the profits you will get from that customer that keeps on purchasing? That would be your long-term value. This is why subscription services are so great, because you get on a long-term basis, whereas selling a single product, they bought it one time and you don't know if they're going to buy it again. So you'll see many, many businesses that do hardware are trying to convert that hardware into subscriptions. Even Apple is doing it with their phone and their services and their content, right? Now you don't just buy it one time, but because of all of the Apple services, now you pay a monthly fee for like Apple Music and Apple Fitness and all of that kind of stuff. And since you're using all of their services, next time you buy a phone, you're going to get an iPhone again. In smartphones, this is the difference between Android and iPhones, right? If you have an iPhone, you're stuck. All your apps, your content, your services. If you're on Android, you can switch to any other Android maker every time you switch a phone. That's why Apple is it's such a huge valuation compared to any other smartphone maker. And it's that long-term value of their customers. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for your answer.
Okay, cool. Oh, my pleasure. All right, Minju, what's the next question we should take?
There is a question on the chat, but I think maybe we should start with the pre-asked questions. So
Let's do that. And if
yeah.
I see a lot of questions here and I like to take my time. So if we do need to go a little bit over time, I'm happy to stay a little bit longer, and we can also keep on doing Q&A tomorrow. And we also have time for one-on-one sessions. Before I forget, I'm going to put in the chat window. That is a meeting link for one-on-one sessions. So if we run out of time, all of you, I'm giving each of the teams 15 minutes over the next 2 weeks. So you can click on that calendar link and you can book a 15-minute session with me and ask me any other questions that you have. Okay, Minju, back to you. So what's the next question?
So I think since team 28 and team 24 is not here, we should start with team 25.
What's the question for team 25?
유호진 씨 직접 질문해 주실 수 있을까요? 유호진님.
Do you think is there a gifted talent to be a good startup? So as we have to, it's a very.
저 혹시 한글에 번역해 주실 수 있으실까요?
네네.
그러니까 그 창업에도 재능이 필요한지, 필요하다면 어떤 것이 있어야 창업에 유리한지를 여쭤볼 수 있을까요?
So team 25 asking if you think there are any like elements or talents that would make you like better when you work at a startup or start some business. So
Right.
we are wondering if there are such talents and how they would work well in the field.
Okay, so like what are some kind of like key skills, right? And some key issues to make their startup more competitive, correct?
Yeah, they actually asked about talents, but maybe that would be the better focus, I think.
Right. Oh, when you mean talent, okay, I see. So you don't mean like talent like the specific, well, I think it's related, right? So like who are the team members and what are their skills? That's what you mean by talent. Okay. So we have this thing. I think that's a really good question. I think that there's two parts to this. Number one is what are their skills? I would say that kind of like the hard skills. So another phrase from Bill Ollett. I'm gonna share this video later with him because I'm gonna just keep on quoting him a lot. So one of the things that he also mentions about a startup is that if you're in a startup, you're doing two things. You are building the product and selling the product. or you're leaving, getting out of there. Either you're building the product or you're selling a product. What I have seen here in Korea is that in general, Korea is very good with engineering, very good with building, but generally marketing is a little bit of a challenge. And I think that this is what I would strongly suggest, is for you to have both of those sides, not just somebody who can build the product, but also somebody who knows or is willing to learn how do you do marketing and how do you convince the buyers to buy the product. Following from the last example, you want to have a problem that solves a solution and you want buyers to be buying it. So I think that marketing and sales as a skill is really important to have, together with product development and engineering. And both of these things need to have a very strong element of design, because how you design your product and how you design the way you communicate with your customers will have a very strong impact on how they perceive your product and their willingness to actually buy it. So there's another kind of like famous startup post by a guy called Ray Inamoto. And what he was saying is that the minimum viable team for a startup is a hipster, a hacker, and a hustler. So the hipster is the designer. They are the ones that make everything look good and make it approachable, easy to use, appealing to use. The hacker is the engineer that actually builds the product so that you can release it. And the hustler is the person who runs out and does sales and marketing and fundraising and everything you need to do to move this product out into the market. So I would say that look at your team and ask yourself, do we have a balance between hipsters, hackers, and hustlers? Oh yeah, we have a blog post about it. If you look at the chat window, Hyesun just linked to that post. And I think I describe a little bit more about hipsters, hackers, and hustlers.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Oh, sorry. So that was the first part of the question, which is, or the first part of my answer, which is what are the skills? And then I would say that the second part of it is make sure that you can communicate clearly and work together clearly as a team. The number one reason, I think I also mentioned this in the video that you saw yesterday, the number one reason why startups fail is because of conflict among the team members. You don't agree on what the market is that you are trying to pursue, or you don't agree about what are your responsibilities and what are your rewards. And in Korea, I've seen a very, by the way, this figure was not for Korea. This was for the United States. Venture capital funded companies, 70% failed because of team conflict. What I've noticed working with a lot of startups in Korea is that the business culture here follows many times this kind of pyramid. There's only one person at the top. One person is the boss. And I think that this is something that is particularly challenging, which is how do you share responsibilities? And how do you make sure that those shared responsibilities are being done on time and that the team stays productive and that you stay in good terms with each other? The business environment here is very strongly for only one person gets everything, and then everybody else just has to be quiet and listens, you know? Usually it's done by age, or it's done by educational background, or by other things. And so I think that being able to collaborate effectively in a team with a lot of skills where everybody participates and everybody feels they are getting treated fairly, I think that's also really important. So that's the second part of my answer.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, Minju, who's next?
So there's team 1 here. Okay, so maybe we should go on with the question from team 1. I think it is quite long, but anyway, so maybe can you speak up, team 1?
Team 1, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can.
Hey, how are
Good
you?
evening, sir. I'm doing fine. Thank you. It's a both pleasure and an honor to speak with you, and I have been very impressed by your keynote as kind of a speech yesterday. So I really thank you for allowing me the time. And to make it brief, I haven't recorded my question. I only submitted it, so I don't really have them right now. But my essential question is about the culture. So our client on the bridge wishes to change the dining culture that has been perpetuated in like face-to-face culture for a long time, and they want to change it by individualizing and digitalizing the dining experience through their products. And what our team faced during this kind of a challenge was that if we really want their mission to be accomplished, we not only need to work with those technical issues, but actually convince and introduce customers into accepting the new normal, that it may be okay to do it digitally. It may be okay to do it via the websites, to order food and dine at the restaurant and use the online tech at the same time. Now, my concern was that it took whole 2020 and 2021, the coronavirus epidemic, for the whole world to actually transfer into digital transformation. That's how much it takes to radically change people's opinions and allow them to accept what kind of the new normality is. But in our level, it's really hard to make such an impact or such a big wave that could actually flush people into thinking and accepting new normality. So I really want to ask you for an advice regarding on that cultural shift. How can we induce it? How can we promote people into accepting those kind of new ideas as the new normality? What kind of approaches can we make? Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Quick thing, you don't have to call me sir. You can just call me Mario.
Okay, thank you, Mario.
When I was in college, even my I was like 19 years old, and my professors were, everybody just uses kind of like a first name, so I got used to it. And by the way, I'm not as old as my professors were at that time. So
oh yes.
Yeah. So I think that your question is touching on some really important aspects, which is that it's not just what you found is really true. It's not just about the technology, but it's about the user's experience and their willingness to adopt that technology. So the challenge for you was, I don't know if you were here for the first question, but it's like, okay, so you have a good solution, but are your customers willing and able to pay? Because they might be able to pay, but if they're not willing to change, if they're not willing to bring these technologies into their location, well, you're going to have a little bit of a problem and you could get stuck. So with restaurants, I can tell you from some of my experience what first you rightfully said, which is that the pandemic has changed a lot of attitudes. And so before the pandemic, could it would have been a little bit more difficult to introduce a solution like this. But after the pandemic, I think that many more restaurants are willing to digitalize. Now, what I could see from here is that essentially it's a, QR code system where people can have their own, have the menu information show up on their own smartphones. And I think that's interesting. For you to get the restaurant owners to adopt this solution, I think it's very important for them to feel that they can trust you. Because if I'm a restaurant owner with a paper menu and people come in and they order and they pay me with a credit card or they pay me with cash, there is a very direct relationship. But if you bring this kind of system into play, now you are creating one step of a distance between the restaurant owner and their customers. So I think that how the financial transaction is managed, how the data within the application is managed, the transparency that you use, and the trust of the restaurant owner that you're actually telling the truth, those are going to be really important issues that you have to solve. And now we get to the next part where you can ask me, okay, so how exactly do I do that? Well, honestly, that is the part that I can tell you I don't know, because now it's your job as an entrepreneur to figure that out. And if you can figure that out, that will be the strength that your company has in the marketplace. And a whole bunch of people are going to start asking you, how in the world did you get them to trust you? Because we tried and we couldn't. There are tools that you can use. And I would say that design thinking as a methodology gives you all of the tools that you need to investigate and find how exactly, what are the specific pain points that restaurant owners have, and what are the key matters for which they would resist your solution, and how do you address them? So let me share with you a screen, because I think that a lot of people can benefit from this tool. If you just go to Google and type IDEO Design Kit, IDEO is a really famous design company. They didn't invent design thinking, but they are a very strong proponent. And they are probably one of the firms in the world making the most money from applying design thinking. And they have actually published all of their methods on this website called designkit.org. And see, you have a field guide that you can download. And by the way, you can download this one in Korean as well. And what they have here is a full description of all of their methods, from inspiration to ideation to implementation, so that you can go with your target customers and work with them. They should be a part of the solution that you build. That I can tell you for a fact. Don't build it with your team because you imagined the best thing possible. And don't get discouraged that 99 out of 100 restaurants are going to tell you no. That's the nature of doing something new. Find one that says yes, work with them to make something work. And once you find something that works for this one person, find 10 more people. And then once you have 10 restaurants that are happy, now think about finding 100 and then 1,000. And then you can start growing exponentially. It's okay for almost everybody to tell you no at the beginning, but you got to find a way to get at least a small group of people that lets you start testing and trying and investigating and implementing within their location. Don't do this in your office with your team, just like thinking about stuff on the board.
Thank you so much, Mario.
You are very, very welcome.
Well, your saying just reminded of one of my favorite quotes that I don't actually remember where it came from. If I had asked people 100 years ago, they would have asked for a flying car or something like that. So yeah, so I very agree much to you on the point that even if 99 people say no, find one that will say yes, and build up and start up for it. And that's the whole spirit of this business, I guess. So thank you for reminding me that. And I'll make sure I visit the design thinking and get some inspirations out of it. Thank you so much, Mario.
My pleasure. And I'll add, because there's a similar phrase, but it's another one with a different lesson by Henry Ford, also about cars. But he was like, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted a faster horse. You know?
Oh yes,
they couldn't imagine cars, right?
That's what I intended and remembered.
Oh, is that the one you were
Yes,
thinking
yes.
about? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And so I'll tell you what is really dangerous that I see a lot of entrepreneurs do. They come up with an idea and they just make a survey. And through a survey, they say, this is my product. Would you buy it? A whole bunch of people say yes. And now you start thinking, oh, because they said yes, or because they answered to a survey, now I'm just going to do that and I'm going to build that. And surveys are good to start, but people lie on surveys all the time. You know, Henry Ford would have just found a way to make horses faster instead of building a car if he would have listened to surveys. That's the quote, right? And so this design thinking methodology is very powerful because you actually observe within the environment of your customers what their real problem is. And that's not enough. Your team also has to have their own creative skills to think about things that the customers haven't thought about that will solve their problems.
Well, thank you so much. I think I consumed too much time of this session, so
Don't worry about
I'll
it.
let it go from now. And thank you so much for advice.
Don't worry about it at all. Minju, quick question. How are we doing on time? So we were supposed to finish at 5:30. What do you have on the schedule? Because for me, it would be fine to stay on a little bit longer.
I think it'll work well because like we don't have any specific schedules for 6 or 3. It's just dinner time, and so the time is allotted to our team projects. So participants who want to listen more can just stay here, and some participants who need more time to work on their team project can just exit the Zoom.
Okay, got it. I think that's perfect. So then we can stick around, and I can stick around until 6 p.m. That would be fine with me.
Yeah, that'll work.
And that
with
way
me.
we can get a few more questions. And like you said, anybody who wants to leave early for dinner or to get working on their projects, that's also perfectly fine. Cool. Okay, next question.
So I see that team 19 came in the Zoom. So 직접 질문해 주실 수 있을까요, 19팀?
저희 영어를 잘 못해가지고요. 뭐 전달해 주실 수 있나요?
네, 알겠습니다.
네.
슬랙에 올린 질문 전달해 드리면 되나요?
네, 맞습니다.
Okay, so team 19 was asking that when you create a startup with students or maybe friends, so they are wondering how they should split up the ratio or some parts within the team. So maybe they are wondering if there are any standard ways for doing that or any tips that you can give about that problem. So.
Okay. Oh man, that is one of the thorniest problems. And I think that is actually a really important problem to solve early on. A professor I mentioned a few questions back, I mentioned that most startups fail because of conflict among founders. And that comes from a researcher and professor from he was at that time at Harvard, Noam Wasserman, and he touches on this issue especially. What is the equity distribution and what are the dangerous things? And what he found is that sometimes the easiest thing that founders do is say, we just split it equally. And what he recommends is not doing that. He recommends having an honest conversation about what does the team think everybody else is contributing? How much is that contribution worth to the company? And then to adjust your share ownership based on that. So we're all friends, we're all the same age, we all graduated from the same program. But guess what? I'm the one that wrote the patent and I'm the lead engineer. It can be easy at first to say, but we're all friends, so let's split it equally. But over time, you know, the imbalance between contribution is going to be really felt, and that can bring conflicts. So another thing that he says is make sure that if it's only 2 people, don't do 50-50. Because once you reach at a point where you don't agree, you won't be able to decide, and the whole company will just kind of like freeze and fail. So what he says is that you'd better have this difficult conversation of who has more than 50 and who has less than 50. And the person that has more than 50 will always have the ability to be in charge. So make sure that you have this clear idea. Another thing that he says is don't do your negotiation early and fix it early, but revise it. So we can say, all right, I am the engineer, and let's say we have 3 people. I'm just going to give you an example. We have 3 people. One person is the engineer. Like I said, I made the patent, I built the main product, and I recruited the other people to join me. I think I should get 60%. And then out of the other people, one person is a designer, and I really need their design skills because my product works well, but the design aspect is important. So let's say that that person takes, what did I say, 60, and that the second person takes 25. And I think that my product is so great that the last person who is doing sales and marketing, your job will be easier because the designer and the engineer, we're really good at what we do, right? And so then that person gets 15%. This might seem reasonable now, but what happened 6 months later? 6 months later, let's suppose that the designer couldn't finish their job. And now you need to figure something out about the design, right? Things happen. The expectations over 6 months, the designer didn't finish their job. And by the way, the person on sales and marketing, wow, now we can see that they really worked a lot harder than before. So give yourself the opportunity to revise, be honest with each other and revise these figures. Don't set them and leave them, but make it according to actual outcomes and revise them. And there's another important tool is called equity vesting. If you're not familiar with equity vesting, the last part is, okay, I told everybody that I should get 60%. And that's the amount of equity that is awarded to me, but I don't actually own it until the vesting period. And the vesting period is usually called, the phrase is, it's usually 4 years with a 1-year cliff. What this means is that if I have that 60%, I will not actually get that equity until the first year is complete. And then I get 1/4 of that 60%. I get 15%. And for the next 36 months, I get one remaining percentage, 1/36th of the remaining part until the 4 years are complete. So if you hire someone, and you offer them equity, but they really can't do the job, like I told you, that designer, I offered him 25%, but 6 months later, they couldn't do the job. Well, do they still get that equity? The answer, if you sign a vesting agreement, is no. If in 6 months they left, they leave and all of that equity remains with the company. If they stay 1 year, but 1 year and 1 month after that, they stop doing a good job and they leave, then at that time they get 25, they get 1/4 plus 1/6, but they don't get the full 25% they had been offered. I know I'm just talking about a lot of figures, and it might, I wonder if this is making sense. Does this make sense to everybody listening here about what this equity vesting means? Okay. I see a few people nodding on their heads, and we do have a recording and we'll do the translation. And I'm thinking maybe we should do a small animation also showcasing this so it's easier to follow. But that's the basic idea is don't just say, let's do it equal. So I'll give you like a very, very short version to answer that question in like 10 seconds. Don't let it be everybody is equal. Have an honest agreement about what everybody thinks they are contributing and do equity based on that. Give yourself an opportunity to adjust that after 3 months or 6 months after you've tried some work. And once you make a real company, make sure you have equity that is vesting, typically 4 years with a 1-year cliff. And this will help you to keep all of these negotiations cleaned. It's not going to be easy. There will still be conflict, but it won't be like show-stopping drama that will bring the whole company down. And this is usually the point on which a lot of companies fail. We just don't agree, and now there's no way to fix it because we never signed flexible agreements when we started. Sound good?
Thank you very much. Very good answer for me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I think we'll probably link to some materials about this. This is really, really important. So we'll I'll think a little bit about how to follow up and send some more, maybe make a blog post or something with a few more resources and sample contracts. But yeah, all right, cool. Thanks a lot. Great. How these questions are great. I love them. Okay, Minju, who's next?
So I was busy writing down, so just wait me see.
Okay.
So I think team 20 is here, so we should go on with team 20. 그래서 20팀 조원분 혹시 질문 직접 질문해 주실 수 있을까요? (20팀의) 심국보님 듣고 계신가요? Yeah, so I think maybe he's not present at the moment, so I will go over to another team.
Okay, yeah, we can skip them, and then if they come back to office hours or if they come in before 6 p.m., we can ask them. All right, cool. Next.
혹시 지금 들어와 계신 분들 중에서 사전에 질문하셨는데 질문 지금 전달 안 되신 조 있으신가요? So Maria, I want to ask your opinion on one issue. So we have the list of questions that I gave you.
Yep.
In advance, so maybe we can work with that questions, or maybe we can just take questions from teams who are in the session but haven't asked questions yet. So what do you think?
I think we can do a little bit of both. We did have one question. I just remembered we had a question in the chat window.
And actually that team member had to leave early because of a meeting. So yeah, I think we'll have to talk over about that again.
Let's do this. Even though team, even though team 20 was not here, like you said, we do have the questions. So let's just go ahead. I can answer those and we can share it with them. I think that these questions could also be really interesting to all of the people that are here. So I'll just give a little bit of a faster answer for that, because I think this is important. So their question number one was, when you want to start a business, using the knowledge based on your own major, you know, like how much should you know about what you're starting, right? Like, should it be related to your major? Should you have some previous knowledge? And is it good to study while starting a business? I want to address this because I think a lot of people in this program are students. And it's very unusual, although we hear it sometimes, about successful startups that were started by college students while they were in school. but it's actually very, very hard. It's very hard to be completing your studies and to build a successful startup at the same time. I completely agree that while you are students, learning about entrepreneurship, getting involved in entrepreneurship, trying to build a startup is a really good idea. But do keep in mind that some of the startups that became very successful, the founders, quit school because of it. Making a startup is very, very intense, and it's not easy to do it while you're in school at the same time. I don't recommend quitting school for a startup. I really don't recommend that. The completing your studies, I think, is very important. And if and when you find a conflict in time between I really want to do the startup versus I should finish my coursework and get my undergraduate or master's degree, I think it's a better idea to finish your studies. And once you're finished, now you have all of this free time to invest all of your time within the startup. So there's a lot of companies that I know that were started in college, but the real commitment started after graduation. Now, about the point of should it be related to your major? Well, probably yes, but not necessarily. If you want to build a software product, you should know how to do programming. You should know computer programming, or you should know how to do software sales. So you should be knowledgeable of the product and the market that you are trying to enter. And in a way, I think that this is why it can be really good to try to do a startup early in your studies, because this can give you an idea for the things that you need to learn. So I think that the best case is very early, while you're still a student, find problems that are worth solving. Try to build prototypes and ideas to solve that problem. And when you get stuck, go take those classes at your university. Oh, I realize I should be a better programmer, so now go take more programming classes. Oh, I realize I should understand more about, for the team that was doing the restaurant products, I need to understand more about food products. Okay, well, find the courses in your university where you're going to be learning more about food and retail operations and the economics of restaurants, the health and safety of the restaurants, all of those kind of issues, right? So that's I think something I would really, really recommend. Don't quit school, but don't just follow your school classes without thinking about the real world. Go out into the real world, do some design thinking, and then come back in and complete your studies to build the knowledge so that you can build a real product for the market. Then how do you raise seed money? That one is easy. Prove that customers will pay. And we could go back to question number one. If you prove that customers will pay for your product, it'll be easier for you to get money from investors. Good investors will ask you, prove that customers will pay. It's that simple. And then prove that you have a scalable business model. That one is a little bit trickier, but I won't get into that right now. So, yep, I think I will, because this team asked 5 questions, I'll stick to those 2 questions for now. And now let's jump over to, you said that Hyesun from Team 5 had to leave, right? I'm just going to read this out loud really quickly, and I'll give you a couple of thoughts. Hello, I'm Kim Hyesun from Team 5. We would like to provide a service that treats people's psychology to provide specific content and produce effective outcomes. We think setting up a specific target is really important, but we are having a hard time setting up the proper targeting. So our question is that, is it okay to change targeting during the business? Yes, that's called pivoting. But don't change the target based on agreements and disagreements with your own team. Choose a target, apply that design thinking methodology, go get results from the real world. And if you find that what you thought is not working, change it to a different idea. The most important thing is don't waste time in a room with your co-founders just arguing about who can think of the best idea. Do it based on what you see in the market. The question continues. We are collaborating with the mentality of a healing service. Mering, actually, we encountered ethical problems collecting customers' information. To offer a more customized and personalized healing program for the customers, collecting data from the individual seems essential, but his dilemma is that collecting data can make customers reluctant to use the service. Is there any advice that you can say to us? Yes, apply design thinking. And this is the exact same problem that we saw with the restaurant, right? It's a great idea. The technology, if we can get it implemented, it will help them. But can we convince them to trust us? That's the hard part. Just developing a great product is not enough. You've got to make sure that they are willing and able to pay you, and making them trust you that you will do the right things with their data is critical for a lot of these personalized services. And customers are very willing to give up their personal data when they do trust you. Or, for example, Facebook. People kind of don't trust Facebook, but it's so big and so useful that you just keep on using it and feeding it with data, right? So how useful is it for people to overcome or to be willing to give up that data? That you have to make sure that you do that you create a great value offering, and that you do so in a way that makes sense for the customers to understand why they're giving you the data. So yeah, again, it goes back to a lot of these design thinking issues. Okay. Minju, what other questions do we have? I think we can, so that was the one that we saw a little bit earlier. We have a few more things with like, oh, I can see the message from Team 5 that they had to get going. And there's a few more chats. So we can take questions from anybody now. Are there any other questions? So who is still here? We've got Team 9, 19, 14.
I think, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to pick on, because I said I would be here a little bit longer, and all of you are still here. Team 9, can you give me an elevator pitch of your idea? So I see 2 people on the camera for Team 9. Kim Da-hye and Im Young-hun. So Kim Da-hye, can you turn on your microphone?
Oh, hello.
All right. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot for joining. All right, you ready? Give me a quick pitch. What is your team working on?
We don't really have a solid idea yet. So
Okay. But do you have some few ideas that you've been thinking about?
We have actually a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Our business model is kind of SNS, like social platform, and we are trying to, I don't know, help like people who want to buy goods from designers. So we wanted to what is the ideal business model for platform, like community based?
Okay, right. So you want to make like a SNS service for customers to connect directly with designers and to be able to purchase.
Yes.
Well,
right.
One suggestion would be that designers is a very, very large and very broad market. So I would suggest for you to narrow down what are the type of end products of these designs. So are you talking about digital art, or are you talking about handcrafted goods?
It's more like how should I say, like stickers like name cards, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so some kind of like professionally printed designs, right?
It's more for like kind of personal usage, not like professional name cards. It's more like you want to put the stickers on diaries or not just for fun.
Okay, so it's more like for personalization. So stickers, cards, and things like that, not for business, but for so the thing about that is that, you know, I think you can narrow it down a lot more. So if you start thinking about the designers, it's easy to start thinking we want as many designers as possible. That's not the hard part. It's gonna be so easy to build a website that says, are you a designer? Make money on our website. Everybody's gonna say yes. That's not the hard part.
Yeah, okay.
I think that the hard part is who wants to buy the stickers? And why do they want to buy stickers? Because then you will find that you don't have, usually what happens is that you don't end up with a result that tells you get all kinds of designers with all kinds of stickers. But what are the kind of stickers? What are like the art styles? Is it, you know, for example, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So within the community of entrepreneurs, people love stickers about working hard to put on the back of their laptop, to decorate their laptop. And that kind of buyer is different from, let's say, teenagers who love comic books and want to buy stickers of their favorite webtoons to put on their notebooks at school or on their backpacks or things like that. Or that is very different from, let's say, in my case, you guys saw that you saw in the lecture, right? We have 2 kids and I'm married, and, you know, we like to decorate our house with art, you know? So even for me as a customer, maybe in one mindset, I'm thinking about stickers for like my business and hard work and those things, but in a completely different mindset, I could be thinking about decorations for like interior design right now in Korea and around the world is taking off because of the pandemic. So what I would suggest for you is to focus on that. Who wants to buy stickers and what kind of stickers do they want to buy?
So are you suggesting that like we should like kind of narrow it down and focus on like one small group of users or customers?
Yep, narrow it down, and then because you're gonna have to match the actual designers and their design style to fill the needs of these customers. And little by little, you can grow to more categories and different art styles. So what I can tell you, the biggest mistake that I see companies with this type of service that they make the mistake of thinking that the artists are the customers. The artists are not your customers. The artists are your partners. They are your suppliers. The customer is the person buying the stickers. So if you want this to be successful, find a person willing to buy stickers, and then make sure you find the right artist to produce the right designs that they will actually purchase. And yes, start with I would suggest starting with a more narrow design style and type of customer, and then over time, experiment and grow out of there. Because if you want to just go into the general design market today, watch out. You're facing a lot of really heavy competition. And you're going to need a lot of money from VCs to really be able to compete in general design markets. But if you find a small part of the market that customers are unhappy with what's out there and they're willing to pay, and these artists don't find anybody that wants to buy, and you can make that connection, you start building a business around that.
Thank you for your insights. It's like,
My pleasure. Okay, let's see. So that was team number 9. Team 19 asked a question earlier, right? If I recall. Wasn't one of the questions from team 19?
Yeah, I think team 19 asked a question on Slack about like on how to build teams with students or friends. So yeah, that was the question and answers.
Okay. All right. So does anybody, or do we have any other questions? Or you're saying, wait, so
Have we covered all the questions from that we previously collected?
okay, let me take a quick look. So we do have, you're right, we do have this list. So, okay, I'll just go through like a few of these briefly because I think these are interesting. So the first question is, when you're investing in a startup, you're curious about how long of an investment period it is. Like when you start a startup, when can you actually recover that investment? I don't want to discourage you, but I think it's important to be honest and to help people be realistic that you're not going to make a ton of money in 1 or 2 years. The typical exit for a company from the time it started until, you know, IPO or M&A, where the founders actually get a large, you know, cash inflow, can be more like 5 to 7 years. When the company was started until the outcome. However, it is not common. It's not common at all. It's not usual that your first company is successful right away. For many entrepreneurs, your third or fourth or fifth company is the one that is finally successful, which basically means that if you decide to become an entrepreneur right when you graduate, and from 25, you're willing to work hard and try without quitting until you make something fit, it could actually be a good 7 to 10 years before you finally find something that really, really works and you end up with a large cash position. So I think in the startup community, there's a lot of ideas, and it happens sometimes that people make it rich right away, but that is unusual. And you got to go in with your eyes wide open to, you know, understand that it might not happen. It could take a while. This is another reason, and this is completely, I guess it's the society that we live in. It's going to seem unfair, but this is a reason why most successful entrepreneurs, they come from wealthy families, because the family, from the moment you graduate for 10 years, can keep on supporting you. I'm not talking wealthy like you have to be billionaires and millionaires, but I am talking about having a family that can continue to help you to pay your rent and pay your bills and keep your own personal economy going for a good 10 years after graduation. In the United States, they did a study. I forget exactly where the statistic comes from, but I saw this from professional educators where I think MIT published this from some research, where the typical age of a startup founder when they start their successful company is 45 years old. And many times up until those 45 years, they had a lot of experiences, a lot of failures, a lot of painful memories that really helped them to learn to do things better. I believe that that data is historical. And now that we know how to teach entrepreneurship, for you guys that are now, you know, between 25 and 30, more or less, I don't think, you know, if I can do a good job to help you build better startups, then that means you shouldn't wait until you're 45 years old. But, you know, do be aware that it might not be immediate and quick. Be completely aware of that it can take time. It can take time, and you've got to figure out what happens when you fail and you run out of money and you've got debt to cover. You're going to have to find a way to get through that. A lot of entrepreneurs for many years work a side job where they're trying to build a company and nights and weekends they are working as a teacher or as a freelancer. They're doing something to keep on making money for years until they can finally make their company run. So yeah, you got to watch out for that. Next question that we have here is, when you have very little knowledge and you want to start a business, how can you do this step by step? Is there a certain procedure or order? I would say that is another reason why I recommend Bill Otlet's Discipline Entrepreneurship. Literally step by step. Follow these steps. And when you're asking there, should you recruit, you don't first recruit a team and then build the product. You recruit your team, you build the product, and you try to start selling your product at the same time. So the short version of this is, if you want to do it step by step, buy Bill Otlet's book, try to do it. And if you get stuck, either think of an idea that is more simple that you can actually do, or find people that help you on the things that you got stuck. And that'll be a really good way to calibrate yourself to understand. Don't just get a large team because you think it's nice to have a large team. Look at those steps in disciplined entrepreneurship and ask yourself, can I do this or do I need help? And build yourself up around that. Next question that we have is, here's a good question about if you, something that I mentioned in the lectures yesterday, that when you're planning to do a business, do it quickly, without worrying. So, be worried about doing the right thing, but do it quickly and test the market. And what this question is, I have an idea, but I can't seem to do that because I'm afraid of failure. I wonder how to take risk and not be afraid to invest time and money. So I think it's wrong to think that entrepreneurs are not afraid of failure. Oh, don't be afraid of failure and just do it. That's not what successful entrepreneurs do. What successful entrepreneurs do is understand the failure, understand the likelihood of failure, and be very active and aware to address the failure points so that they don't happen. And I think that's a little bit different. And I don't like the message that I hear many times. I hear this a lot from, I don't want to talk bad about university professors, but I hear this a lot from university professors telling students in entrepreneurship, you should not be afraid of failure. Just go and try it and do it. And don't worry about the time and the money. In the long run, you'll be fine. Well, that professor is telling, if that professor really believes that, they should quit their job and they should try to enter the market. The truth is that you should be careful with failure, because for many people, failure can have very long consequences. If you go and take a lot of debt and the company doesn't work, you can get yourself into trouble. And so it's okay to be afraid of failure. You just have to be brave and disciplined to understand what is the likelihood of failure and can you take a reasonable risk. Many of the people who get on a stage at a startup conference to talk about, oh, I just went for it and I wasn't afraid of failure. Yeah, but you also had a family that would continue paying. It is just a fact. Many people who do this have social support. So be really careful with financing. For those of you, I will tell you one instrument that I think Korea has done very, very well that can really help, can seriously help for you to reduce the penalty for failure is the credit guarantee system. So in Korea, if you get a credit guarantee from the Korean government, they will provide you a certificate that you can take to a bank to get a loan to start your company. Usually, if your company fails and you took a loan, you have to pay it back. And if you don't pay it back, your credit and so many things about your life end up being very difficult. However, with the credit guarantee system in Korea, if you build a company and it fails, and it was a genuine, a sincere, an honest attempt, and the company fails and you have to shut it down and you can't pay that loan, the government will actually pay the loan for you and you don't get a big penalty. And you can kind of try again. So I think that the credit guarantee system, the way that it's being done in Korea right now is, it's very promising because it allows people who don't have family support and generational wealth, it allows them to take these risks. So I think that with the grants and the financial incentives that the government is providing, it's really good. And you should learn about the financing mechanisms and the long-term risk so that when you take a risk, you understand what you're trying to do and you understand what's your ability to exit without having a personal catastrophe. Most entrepreneurs are really smart about the successful entrepreneurs. They're not afraid of failure totally, but they understand it and they address it and they deal with it and they minimize it. They find a way to share the load of failure with other people, especially governments and good investors. Not all investors are the same, but really good investors will also understand this risk and help you to address it. Okay, I have another question. This is a personal one. I heard that you had learned, on your job at your father's company. As I mentioned in the lecture, I worked for my dad's company in IT consulting, right? What was the difference between learning on the job and when you came to work in society? So if I understand this question correctly, I think that they're asking what is the difference between learning within the environment of my own family's company versus trying to do it outside in society. And I would say that there's some really, really big differences. I think that the biggest difference between working at my dad's company, and I think this could be true for a lot of people, or working at an existing company. Out of college, you go work for Samsung. What is the big difference between working in an existing company versus going out into the world as an entrepreneur and trying to introduce a new product into society? The biggest difference is how difficult it is to get customers. You cannot compare it. My dad's company, I mean, before I was even, or before I even knew about anything, they had already gotten customers. So from the day that I started working there, the customers were already there. And so it was easy to accept a phone call and help with sales and help with customer service. And that was it. And when I tried to build a company outside of that, especially when I came to Korea, the part that I had underestimated was how difficult it's to get the customers to buy for the first time. Once they've bought and they become recurring revenue, it gets a lot easier. So that's market entry is expensive and difficult, and it's not enough to have a nice product. You've really got to learn how to do sales and marketing as a new company without an established brand and without an established customer base. That's tough. Okay. And yep, I think that basically covers all of the questions that we had in the Excel file so far, just scanning through here. I think some of them we didn't cover, but they're similar to other questions that have already been asked. So yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah. How do you think about the difference between
Well, what's the difference between brand? First of all, they are very closely related. And I would say that what is the, I think that, well, would I say, I would, so this is how I would say it. All companies need to be doing sales and marketing. I will bring sales into it as well. So, and first, what is the difference between sales and marketing? In marketing, you are communicating with a large group of people. And out of that large group of people, some will be potential buyers, others won't be potential buyers. And that is when you switch over to sales. When you identify who the potential buyers are, now you start engaging with them one-on-one, trying to bring them into your sales funnel to get them to purchase. Branding is a critical element for your sales and marketing activities to be successful, because you need to be doing marketing across different channels. If you have, and in fact, for a customer to want to buy, they might need to receive your marketing message from these multiple channels. They saw an advertisement on YouTube. They saw a posting on Facebook. They saw something else on Instagram. A newspaper wrote about you, and then they saw you there. And after being exposed to your company 5 or 6 times, they, oh yeah, you know what? I think this company is good and I think I might want to buy from them. So what branding does is that it builds that image across all of those different channels so that the customer knows it's the same company they keep on seeing again and again. So that's what branding does to marketing. It builds a consistency where in multiple channels and multiple times, you are building one image of your company in your customer's mind, instead of them forgetting about you every time and then suddenly just never buying from you. Then what branding does during the sales process is it builds trust. If your brand has a good reputation for quality and for customer service, your sales process will be much, much, much cheaper. So that's what I would say, is that these are very closely related. And finally, I would tell you that in my experience, and I've seen other comments, I don't have strong data behind this, and I think it changes by market. So don't take this as a strong truth, but more like a recommendation from me. I strongly believe that in the early stages of your startup, your brand is more important than your technology or your patents. Because even if you have a patent, people can steal it from you, and you don't have enough money to fight against a corporation in court for a patent. But if you develop a strong brand, the large companies will have a very hard time stealing your product, because your customers will love you and your customers will make a lot of noise. Hey, Samsung is ripping off these guys, and Samsung's going to be like, no, we weren't. And you know, a strong brand is a very, very strong protection in the market, and it's a very strong driver of a low cost of customer acquisition.
Okay, thank you, Mario.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay, well, it looks like we are right at 6 p.m. So right on time to finish the session. We got through this last question. I posted a link. Sorry, I posted a link on the chat window a little bit earlier, and I'll post it again. So I'm making time available for I'm making time available for the teams to have a 15-minute one-on-one session with me this week or next week. So from any of these questions or during the time that you are working on your projects for the program, if you have something that you need help with, feel free to sign up. There's the link again. Feel free to sign up and we can have a quick 15-minute call and we can review whatever problems or issues you are currently facing. Okay, so thanks a lot for showing up today. We will do one more Q&A session tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m., right?
At 11 a.m. We'll have one more Q&A session. If any of you think of anything overnight and want to ask more, and I'm guessing that we will also have some other new people show up tomorrow as well. So I'd be really, really happy to talk with you more. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a very pleasant evening. Minju, do you have any other announcements that you want to make to the attendees?
Oh, no, I don't have any.
Are we good for now? Okay. I have the recording on my computer, so as soon as Zoom is finished with the encoding, I will upload it and share it with the team so that you guys can cut it up and post it back on the website. Okay, great. All right, fantastic. So thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for showing up today, and I'll talk to you soon.
다들 시간 내서 들어주셔서 감사하고 오늘 연사로 참여해주신 마리오님한테도 큰 박수 보내주시면 좋을 것 같아요.
Okay, all right, thanks. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
I made you host.
All right, I'm the host now, so I'm gonna start recording this session. Okay, so let's go back to that first question. I think this is a really important question, and it probably makes a lot of people really nervous, right? Which is, how can young students who are just finishing their studies, they are just starting to enter the workforce and they are trying to build a startup, and how can they compete against people who have more experience, who have already been working in the market for some time? Well, I think this is an important question. And the truth is that people with more experience in general, people with more experience have a higher likelihood of making a successful startup. And the typical age of a founder of a successful startup is actually in their 40s, not in their 20s. However, this does not mean that you shouldn't try, because many times those people who could be in their 30s or their 40s that they finally made a startup that is successful, many times that startup was successful because they had been building up the skills and the connections and an understanding of the market through their previous attempts. So the biggest advantage that you have being young is that you have the opportunity to fail and fail quickly and learn quickly from the market. You don't have, I don't think most of you have any kids yet. So once you have kids that you need to take care of, your ability to take risks really starts to go down. So when you are young, you have the ability to take risks. You have the ability to keep a very, very lean startup. It is possible to make a successful startup right when you finish college. We recently held a conference with Hanyang University, and I think we can share the link with you for that.
한양 유니버시티랑 컨퍼런스 한다는데요? 누구랑? 한양대랑 컨퍼런스 한다는데요? 언제요?
I'm sorry
모르겠어요.
if Mario
처음
can
들어가지고.
mute them because
All right.
I'm not the host now. I cannot mute.
Okay,
So.
I muted them. Yep. So we previously had a conference at Hanyang University, and we brought in a guest speaker called Peter Servas. He actually came up with a startup idea while he was a college student. He grew that idea while he was in school. Then he dedicated himself completely to the company after graduation. And after 10 years of working on the company, it was acquired by Ford Motor Company. So that's kind of like a really, really successful case. And one of the things that he said that was possible for him to do is that, well, since he was straight out of college, he could take the risk. He was really passionate about the idea. And he was able to keep costs really, really low. He was living in his grandmother's house. He was driving a used car, and he could put all of his time and energy and attention. So I think that your ability to commit your time and your energy and your creativity while keeping your cost and your risk taking at a very low level, that is a huge advantage that people who are older don't have. You know, I have 2 kids, as you saw in the speech that I gave a little bit earlier. When I was straight out of college, I thought, hey, I want to do something interesting. I'm going to go to Korea. And I didn't really have a plan, and I just wanted to see what it was like. And so I got a research job. And, now today it's very different. I can't just suddenly pick up my bags and go to a new country, and then what happens to my kids, right? So I think that is something that you can definitely leverage. Your ability to take risk will be higher, but this does not mean that you should start spending a lot of money and getting bank loans and things like that, but rather run a very, very lean startup and experiment quickly. I think there can be a second advantage, which is when people have too much experience in the market, they start to lose a little bit of an ability to be creative. They start to feel that a certain market and a certain industry, that a certain type of product must be done in a very specific way. And it's not always easy for them to think with completely fresh eyes about a different way to address the problem, a different way to design the product. And so a lack of experience can sometimes give you more freedom in the creativity that you can apply and in the type of solutions that you can come up with. So I would say that those are the advantages that you would definitely bring to the table. And make sure that your disadvantage, which is that you don't have any exposure to the market, you have to overcome that advantage by make sure, we covered this yesterday and I'll say it again, make sure that you don't plan your company and your product just sitting in a room discussing with your teammates about what you should be doing. Go out and interview your potential customers, observe them, apply the methodology from design thinking, and get to really understand the problem, not as you imagine it in your mind or as you saw it in your university courses, but by really looking at the people who are facing that problem in their environment and observing their situation and finding a way to solve the problems that they have. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yes, thank you about it.
I see a message in the chat window. Here's Hyorim from Team 5. Hi Hyorim, I can see you're in the video. We got to your question yesterday when you weren't there, and we recorded it, but we haven't published the recording. So I can see here that you have it's a service that treats people, their psychology, their mental health, right? Hyorim, can you enable your microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. So your idea is to address people's mental health, and you're saying that you're having a hard time setting up your proper target. And is it okay to change your target during as you're operating your business? So changing your target as you operate your business, that's called a pivot. Not only is that okay, but that's highly encouraged. The question is, how do you change your target? Don't change your target because you're just talking to your co-founders and you can't agree and you're changing targets every few weeks or every few months. You need to come up with an actual experiment that you run with your target users. And if that experiment is successful, you build upon it. If the experiment is not successful, then you change your target. So mental health is a really, really large topic. Can you tell me a little bit more specifically? What was it? What are you thinking behind the service? Who are the customers? And what are the mental health problems that they have that you would like to help
We
them?
are doing a project. We are having a program with the company Maring, and their target is to get to treat some people who are ages around 20, and many of people who are I'm not really actually good at English, so please understand.
You're
a
actually
little bit.
doing perfectly
And-
fine. Don't worry. Keep going.
And those people are getting hard time with their psychology, but they actually don't care about their mental health, and they kind of don't like to go to a hospital because it might be it may not feel so good. So we provide some mental care service in our app. So our company actually target some women who are ages between 20 to 25, maybe actually, and who live alone in nearby the Seoul. But we had a short time about to search about some statistic data, and we found that not only the people who are live in Seoul and live alone, there are some kind of teenagers who are suffering some psychological problem, and also they who live in some another part of the Korea, not only in nearby Seoul. So we actually think about that the target, which our company called Maring actually initially setting, and it might be wrong. So we thought that we might be change some targets. So we wonder that is it okay to change that kind of target during the business?
Right. So I think that is that is a very fair point for people inside of the company to be making. Do we have the right target or not? And mental health is really important, especially in this last year with the pandemic. Mental health issues and the way that people have been affected, the increase in stress, the increase in the uncertainty in the environment is really affecting people psychologically. I think Korea, compared to other countries in the world, people were already reporting before that higher levels of stress, lower levels of happiness compared to other countries. Even compared to countries where people have less money, there are many cases of countries where people earn less money, yet somehow the population reports a higher level of happiness than in Korea. For teenagers, especially in the school system, I think there is almost like a public health crisis because the stress levels on teenagers and young adults are incredibly high. So it's definitely an important problem. Now, the question here is, how do we solve that problem? And there are multiple solutions, not just a startup. So is this a problem that the government should solve? Is this a problem that we should solve through public health institutions? Is this a problem that we should solve through nonprofits? And the answer is all of these different actors have to be involved. You cannot just take on this entirely by yourself. But now in entrepreneurship, what you are trying to do is not just solve problems, but it is to solve problems by selling a product at a price that provides your company a profit. And so the really important question here is, if you want to be helping these teenagers, who is going to pay? Do the teenagers themselves have enough money to sign up for the service? Or do you need to find a different buyer? That, I think, is the really important question. Who will actually pay? Definitely the young adults and teenagers, they are your end user. But the payer, it could be them with their own pocket money. They don't have a lot of money, but teenagers do have some money, right? Now, chances are, I think of myself as a teenager. This was, oh my God, 20 years ago. And I was in Mexico at the time. So don't try to learn too much from my experience. Different culture, different location. But if I was a teenager and somebody told me, hey, your pocket money, do you want to spend it on, a medical product for your mental health? I would say, no, I would rather go play video games or hang out with my friends. And so the question is, can you package it? For a startup, it's really important that your customer has to be willing and able to pay. If it's too expensive, they won't be able to pay. And if you package it in a way that they don't like you said, if you tell them this is for your mental health, they're not going to like it. They're not going to want to do it. So how do you package your pricing is important. Do the teenagers pay? Has to be a very low price, and it has to be very agreeable to their sensibilities. Is it something that you want the parents to pay? Well, now you need to do a little bit of design for the parents. I taught at Hagwons when I was in business school and when I was doing research at Sejong University. And one of the things that struck me at that time, this was about 10 years ago, is that somehow is not that parents want their children to suffer, but when children were suffering because of school stress, parents were a little bit okay. They thought, oh, this is good for you. And so the question is, how do you, now that was some time ago, and I think today parents have changed a lot. So then do you want to be selling this to the parents? How do you talk to them to get their kids to use the product? I would say you even kind of see yourself as like the anti-Hagwon, because what does the Hagwon do? Give you a lot of stress, right? And I think the parents today are much more open to giving children a more, a better life. So I think that it's possible to address the parents as payers as a different model. Or the third one, if you want to approach it from the point of view of public health, can you convince the National Health Service? And this means you would have to work with doctors and hospitals and the government. Can you convince them that when young students feel stressed and they want to use your service, they pay the same way? If I go to the doctor today, I pay like 3,000 won, like Samcheon won, and they take a look at me, and then my health insurance covers the rest, right? And so can you actually get your product to be accepted as a clinical treatment where these young adults are the ones that use your product, but it's the National Health Service or the hospitals themselves, the ones that are actually paying the fee? So those are your three different revenue streams. And the big question is, can you make one of those work? If you can make one of those work, then you have a business and you grow upon that. If you can't figure out how to get anybody to pay for this, then at that point you stop and you say, okay, we tried with this simple thing and the teenagers just wouldn't pay for it. We tried talking to the parents and they just really wouldn't pay for it. And we tried talking to the hospitals and the government. And one problem, one big criticism, I would say, and I mean this in a very constructive way, not in a negative way. But one criticism of the health insurance service in Korea is that it does not cover mental health. If you are sick and you need antibiotics, or you break a bone, or you need x-rays for sickness, the National Health Service does cover it. But today they don't cover mental health treatments. They don't cover therapy. So, you know, I run a startup. I undergo a lot of stressful situations. I actually looked into this. I need someone to talk to. And I looked at who were therapists that are out there to help me deal with work stress. And you know, I'm trying to start a company while I'm having kids. And what I found was that I actually have to pay. And 1 hour with a mental health professional costs like, especially in my case, I want them to be bilingual. A 1 hour consultation is about 150, between 150,000 for 1 hour with a junior therapist, and a senior therapist is like 300,000 won for 1 hour. You know, they charge like high-end lawyers. So I think that that's something I want to make you aware of, because I also think that that could change, especially now with the pandemic. And that's something for your team to look into. So that's what I would suggest. Yes, you might have to change, but make sure that you change because you're testing with the market. You're prototyping a product, you're prototyping your pricing package, you're aware of the different mechanisms by which you would get paid, and you actually try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, you have to move on. Does that answer your question?
It helps. Yeah, your answer really helped me to think as a part of entrepreneur. Thank you about it.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna have discussion with my team member.
Probably. I think just thinking about those different aspects is going to be interesting for you to implement into your project. So yeah, good luck on that. Let me know how it goes.
Thank you.
And just to let everybody know, I also have office hours. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can sign up for a 15-minute one-on-one, and I can help you review the work that you have, and you know, kind of help you think your way through it and try to find what kind of solutions you can propose for the problems you are looking at in the market. Okay, Minju, who's next?
Okay, so I think Team 5 has another question, but since we spent a lot of time and we have many teams waiting, and I think we answered this question yesterday, so 어제에 대한 영상은 아직 안 올라갔지만 속기록은 저희가 지금 어제 데이 2라고 올려드린 걸 링크를 바꿔놔서 그 부분에 대해서 빠르게 공지를 할 테니까 그걸 봐주시면 조금 더 오팅한테 도움이 되게 될 것 같아요. 그리고 또 시간이 부족하다 느끼시면 아까 말씀해주신 대로 1대1 세션을 잡아주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 네. 그 부분은 이해를 좀 해주시면 좋겠고요. So due to the lack of time, we do have another question from Team 5, but I think we answered that one yesterday. So yeah, we'll just leave it to them. Maybe they can just take on a one-on-one session. So I think Team 22 has a question. So I think we'll be taking this one.
Okay, I see it in the chat window, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, by the way, I changed my background.
That's great.
This is the one for the
So I
festival.
think I sent you like 2 backgrounds, so I'll change
Okay,
mine too.
so we have Kyungsit Kim from Team 22. First of all, thank you for your time. Every startup has their own hypothesis. They try to verify their hypotheses in their own way. How do we get the conviction that the hypothesis is working? Okay, so Kyungsit, can you turn on your microphone? So can you tell me what is the hypothesis for your team specifically? What's the problem you're solving, and what do you think you can do to solve that problem?
Let's say every startup has their own hypothesis. This is the if we can make it and customer use our service or product, in this critical hypothesis, sorry, I'm not good at English. Please.
No, don't worry. So I understand the question generally, but can you tell me what is the problem that your team is working on?
This question is for general question for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So let me give you like first a general answer, and the way that you verify, the way that actually validating a hypothesis, I think is really important. This is really critical for a startup. And I would say that you can think about it in 3 steps. And when you complete these 3 steps, you will know that you have a solid business idea. So step number 1 is, are people interested in the solution you're proposing to their problem? And you can do this one by setting up a website. Set up a website where you are blogging, you are writing about the problem, you are doing search engine optimization, social media campaigns, and the question is, do people interact with you? Do they seem to be interested and engaging with you, that they think this is an important problem? And do they click on the links, come to your website, and view your product? Can you create an email capture form? Are people signing up to your email list? So if you're writing about the problem, engaging people with social media, and you get behavioral feedback, they are commenting, resharing, talking to you, giving you their email address, I would say that this is kind of like the first step that gives you some idea that you are in the right direction. But that's not enough. The next step is, I would say, even more important, 100 times more important, which is, okay, you've got traffic coming into your website. Can you convince them to pay? It's that simple and that hard at the same time, because this is not an easy thing to do. But people think, oh, to validate my idea, I need a really complicated business plan, and I need to pitch to investors, and I need to get investment, and I need to go to competitions. And all of those tools, investment, competitions, financing, are important tools that you can bring into your business development, but they don't validate your idea. You validate your idea by doing that. Make your product available and get people to buy. And that's it. If people are buying, that means the product is solving a problem. And that is a very strong indication that you have product market fit. Your solution fits the market because customers are buying. The next step is, I think, really important. And this is where it goes beyond just product design, but how does your business model work? Now that you've sold to a couple of customers, a few customers, can you sell to a large enough group of customers following a cost structure and a business model so that you are actually making a profit? Because your cost is not like you can buy, let's say, I don't know, I'm making a sandwich shop, and the materials for the sandwich costs $1 and I'm selling the sandwich for $2. But that's not, I don't get $1 of profit. You have to pay for the rent, you have to pay for marketing, you have to pay for, a lot of other business costs. So the question is, okay, you should be selling at a unit profit, but once you add all of your business costs, are your revenues and your gross margins high enough that you can be making a profit and operating sustainably? And then at that time, now you have a stable business. Why? Because you're selling and you're making a profit, and your time goes to infinity. You can keep on doing this forever. The markets will change, so not really, right? But you could keep on doing this as long as you're profitable and you don't get any more that time pressure of validating your business. I would add one last thing. People think this is necessary, but it's optional. And the last thing is, if you are operating profitably, is your market large enough? And do you want or need to grow aggressively so that then you can talk to VCs and get investment? A lot of people think I should just get VCs from the beginning, but I would say you got to do it the other way around. Make a website, assess interest, try to sell the product profitably, sustainably, and then ask yourself, is this market large enough? Can we find a market that is large enough? And can we show that we can grow into that large market and then bring in money from investors? And that fourth step is optional. It's fine for you to choose, hey, we're happy, we're profitable, we're paying salaries, we're making money, and we don't want to grow. So that's what I would that's what I would say. Does that answer your question? Okay. So I hope that, we have to move on to another question, but I hope that you think about this, set up your experiments for your problem that you're going to be doing during the graffiti program, then come back during the one-on-one sessions and let's try to find a way to help you apply that specifically. How do you set up these tests so that, you can set up 2 weeks is enough time to set up a quick experiment to do a basic validation. Okay, next question. Should I take the one that came up in the chat window?
Yeah, I think that would be good. And Team 9, we will also be waiting for your questions. So if you finish wrapping it up, then you can just put it on the chat window and we'll go over to it after this one.
Okay. So hi, I'm Junyoung So from Team 3. Is it important that the owner of a startup have original technology or programming skills? Do you think that this will increase the probability of success to be much higher? So it depends on what the product is that you are building. The answer in general is no, you don't have to. Because not all companies are technology companies or software companies. There are many different types of companies that can be very, very profitable. So as a founder, what you do have to be able to do is participate in designing and building the product. There is a company called Chobani in the United States. And I think it was like 15 years ago, I don't remember the exact time, but the founder realized that really delicious fat-free yogurts that he was used to having in the Middle East, they were not available in the United States. In the United States, all of the yogurts were very high in sugar and high in fat. And so he decided that he would launch a line of Greek yogurts. So this is not particularly new technology. Yogurt is hundreds or thousands of years old, maybe. He started from thinking the yogurt my grandma used to make or something like that. And the way that he launched was on the operations side. Okay, where am I going to get a factory? How am I going to finance this factory? He took a really big risk, took out a very large loan to buy an old yogurt factory and convert it. So that was that case. Another friend of mine, his company has been growing very aggressively. And him and his co-founder saw that there wasn't healthy food for babies. So what was their skill? Their skill was making the formula to create healthy food for babies, fresh, cold pressed food. And so again, it wasn't programming. It wasn't what you see in terms of technology like Bitcoin or blockchain or digital marketing, but they did have to use digital marketing tools. And in terms of technology, the technology that they had to learn was the food processing technology. So if you want to have a company, you should have design and product development skills. And if you don't know enough about design or product development, you got to learn it quickly, because you've got to go talk to your possible customers, understand their problem, and design the solution. Whatever technology or engineering skills you need, if you don't have them, you can recruit team members, or if you find a way to make enough money, you can just hire employees. And I think that when it comes to the technology side, the Korean government gives a lot of grants. It's common to get $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. Like I've seen typical grants that I've seen for technology development is like 3천만 원. So you can get money from the government that then you can hire like the engineering company to help you build your product. The question is, what are they building? You've got to be able to design the product itself. Junyoung, are you there? Can you turn on your microphone and your camera for 1 sec?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I don't have webcam in this
Okay.
computer, so I could. Yeah, it was very helpful answer. Absolutely. So thank you.
Yep. Can you tell me briefly do you have a product that you are currently working on?
I devised an idea, which do you know about tech? Something solution sites about it is related to something problem solution sites. So it is hard to explain with English my items. So, but I devised the idea. So I found my friend. So hey, wait, let's get started with this project. But I don't have some technology or programming skills to actualize this program. So I thought, do I have to find other programmers, or do I have to learn programming skills? But it will spend lots of time. So I don't know how to actualize this idea.
So I would say that if you're not a programmer and you need to write new software, there are people who actually learn. Actually, An Chol-soo from Anlab, that's his story. He was a doctor and he learned how to do programming in the evenings to launch his first product. I don't know what this was, like 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
So that is possible. If you are like, hey, you know what? I really want to build this and I'm going to dedicate my time and study hard and learn how to program. So there are people who do it. It's possible for you to do it. You could also learn how to, it's different. Programming is a little bit different from your user interface design. So if you can learn how to describe the user interface and the user experience, then it can also be possible for you to hire or recruit other programmers that will help you with the actual coding. So there isn't a right answer. I cannot tell you you should learn how to design and hire programmers, or you should learn to program yourself. It's up to you to choose which of these two you want to do. But that's usually one of those two ways is how you can solve this issue. Either describe it well enough for other people to build, or learn to build it yourself. And it's up to you to choose what do you really want to do.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Minju, you said we had Team 9 has a question.
But I got a message that Team 9 will be asking their question at the private session, so
Okay.
click on that. 그래서 지금 시간 부족으로 추가적인 질문이 있으신 분들은 다 1대1 세션에서 많이 추가적으로 신청을 해주셔도 좋을 것 같아요. So I was wondering if Team 17 had a question. So, Eunjin, can you speak up? Maybe Team 17 was just listening, so we'll go over to Team 21. 21팀 혹시 질문 있으신가요?
Oh no, I think that they probably took a break. All right, I do see that there are 4 people from team number 9 on the call right now. So thank you, all 4 of you, for joining. We've answered some of the other people's questions, and then there's a handful that they might come back and listen in at some point. So I know that you do have a question that you want to ask later, but just can you introduce your team briefly? Because we do have a little bit of time and you're all here. Who out of the 4 of you, who wants to do like a super quick team introduction? Or I'll pick. Hyesun, you're the only one that is not wearing a mask, and I like your San Francisco background. So can you enable your microphone, and can you just give me like a super short intro for your team?
Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. We are number 9 team, and we actually meeting together every day here. Every morning, like some people come from very far away, and then okay. So our item is kind of a personalized good items. I guess yesterday one of our member like kind of asked questions with you. For you. And we are kind of considering how to make this business model to make a profit, as well as how to attract as many people as possible. Actually, because we know that I mean these days many young people actually kind of have very good interest to some of design stuff, like especially some of personalized design stuff. So and also, as you said, like this Corona season, like many people have interest to interior, like home interior, or even their products designing stuff. So I think this business model is pretty attractive for young people, and we are kind of searching people like, do they have real interest? Do they will they like participate this kind of stuff? Like, because in my case, like my many friends actually kind of they do their designing stuff on their iPads. Like they just create many kind of stuff on their iPads actually. And for me, I have actually many females are more have interest, more interest to this kind of stuff. So yeah, so we are working hard on it. I mean, yeah, we are kind of figuring out how to make profits from this kind of business.
Okay. So that's good. So you guys are the team, because I think we talked about this yesterday, right? That you were thinking about stickers and those kinds of things. So I think that there's 2 things that I would want to suggest about this now, which is develop a clear pitch. You know, and every time you see me, I'm going to ask you again and again and again.
You mean
pitch
the
your company to me.
target of customers?
You need to develop so what you're trying to do exactly. You have to be thinking about your target customer, but if and when you find them, you have to be able to pitch them quickly. So you just said, we don't know if they're going to buy it. Great. Well, the way you get to know that is by being able to advertise it to them and asking them to buy. And if they buy, that means they'll buy. You know, that's the fastest way. So verbally, pitching as a, you know, people think that, oh, you pitch to investors or you pitch to competitions. That is, I don't worry about that. Really don't worry about that. Pitch to your customers.
Okay.
And you've got to be able to pitch in like 10 seconds.
Okay.
Because think about how long, if you're on YouTube and you're trying to see something and there's an advertisement, how long do you really look at that advertisement?
Yeah.
You know, in 3 seconds, if it's not interesting to you, you're already hitting skip. Even before, you know, like your mind is already thinking, I want to skip this, right? So think of yourself as a customer in certain situations. When you're on social media, 3 seconds is about the amount of time that you have to leave a good impression for someone to be like, okay, this is interesting. When you meet people face to face, then it's usually at about, depending on the situation, but usually within 15 to 20 seconds.
Okay.
If they understand what you're doing in 15 or 20 seconds, they'll keep on listening for more. If they don't understand what you're doing in 15 to 20 seconds, their mind is already going to start moving in a different direction. So we got to have a very, very clear pitch. And you are talking about selling designs, but how do I buy that? For me as a customer, how do I buy that?
It's like, it's like the making product is quite a long process. Like when we want to make one product, but I think this business model is kind of make this easy. I mean, easy to like like customers can like easily approach this kind of productions. They are what kind of product they can select actually, but I guess
I totally agree with that. However, this is something that your customers don't care. Your customers don't want to hear you saying, oh, we make it, you know, yes, you should work with your team to make something complicated easy. But what I mean is like from a customer's point of view, your pitch is what you say like right away. What is your company about? Yesterday, you told me stickers. Yesterday you guys were saying stickers, right?
I remember. It's sticker is kind of first items, and then we will like do every kind of items.
Bingo. So that's your pitch. Your pitch is, we sell stickers. And what's special about your stickers?
Okay.
What's special about the stickers?
Oh, you mean our stickers?
Yep. What's special about the stickers?
Okay. Like customer can choose their design and their any kind of artist. If they have some favorite artists, they can choose those artists' design stuff. And then, so it's kind of personalized stickers, I guess.
Ah, there we go. This is one part I didn't know yesterday. I didn't know that it was personalized
It's like kind
stickers.
of just merchandise. Startup is Conquer. They make a platform that, like, just say that I want to make some ISIS stickers or ISIS bottles or like some notes or something like that. So I want to order, but if I search on the internet, I just get so many results, and the prices also vary. Yeah, and so
All right.
they came up with a platform to I can just check like what some sites can make me and what are their prices and what are the types of the merchandise. Yeah, that was the main item of Conquer, I think.
So I think that I think that's so I think that's great, and I think that, you know, so and the point that I'm trying to make is that where we got to right now, we cannot be talking about it for 5 minutes until we finally understand. You know, it's like you've all of this 5 minutes conversation, you've got to get it out in like, again, if it's for social media, in 3 seconds. one sentence, one image that people can be like, oh, I understand what that means, and click on it and come to your website. And if you're talking to people face to face, you've got to just condense that into like 10 or 15 seconds. By the way, there are companies that do this. So this type of company is the idea that you are proposing is not entirely new. In the United States, there are companies. Let me show you. I'm going to share my browser window. Give me 1 second. And there's a company called Custom Cat. Oh, let me share my browser window. So, so Custom Cat does exactly what you are talking about, and they do apparel, houseware, and accessories, and they do print on demand. So if I want to make t-shirts or hoodies with my own logo, I just order them from Custom Cat. And what you can do with something like Custom Cat, so we can also do housewares like mugs and ornaments and blankets, wall art, you know, so you guys said stickers, but there can be like small stickers and there can be like big stickers too, right? And other types of accessories, bags, footwear, jewelry. And what they do, for example, is that they even integrate with Shopify. And you make a Shopify store and you integrate with Custom Cat, and they have what is called print on demand, which means that you don't have to order all of the items first. You can create the design, and when a customer orders it, then they actually print it and send it to the customer. So this company exists. I don't know too much about how successful they have been. I do know that it is one of the one of the top recommendations. Anytime somebody asks for custom printing in the US, this is one of the top recommendations. So are you trying to bring something like this into Korea? I would say, you know, that a very, very possible and successful startup strategy is to take a successful company from a different geographical region, from a different market, and bring it into your own home market.
I see.
Now, the reason why I actually thought about this after our discussion yesterday is because you can think about two different models, two different business models. Business model number one would be that your company builds a service like Custom Cat, where anybody can upload their own designs. Yesterday, I actually thought your business was something different, because both you and your teammate told me that you know a lot of designers that have really interesting designs. Another possible business model is, instead of building Custom Cat, use something like Custom Cat to make your direct online store with the unique designs from the artists that you know. Do you understand the difference between these two options?
You mean utilizing Custom Cat, or?
Well, I don't think Custom Cat works in Korea, but I do know that in Korea there are printers for custom goods.
Yeah, of course, a lot.
So my question to you is, do you want to build a software solution so that you are the custom printer? Or do you want to build your own online store with designs from artists that you know?
I guess second one is more likely. We want.
Okay. And that's what I would say, because between yesterday and today, I've heard both of these business models from your team. Yesterday, I thought it was the second one, but then today when Minju was explaining it to me, then I thought, oh, okay, it's a different business model. So what I would suggest to you is clarify, do we want to run our own online store? with designs from artists that we know, where we use custom printing solutions to build and deliver our product. That's option number one. Option number two, build a software and build a platform itself where people can order their own custom prints. So that's what I would suggest. Talk to your team and be clear about which of these two different opportunities, as a team, you guys should clarify which of these two business opportunities are you going to try to focus on.
Yeah.
And develop a clear pitch and develop a clear product.
Okay. Thank you for your
And then
advice.
test it and get people to pay. It's really that simple.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, and then I know that you might have other questions for the one-on-one session as well. So work on this problem with your team and then think about the other
Could I ask you
questions that-
now?
Yes, go
Could
ahead.
I ask a question now?
Sure.
I think there is a gap in the market and our business model can fit in the gap. But I was wondering if the market is in the gap. I was not that sure about it, but so I want to ask your opinion.
Okay, so I think, when you talk about a market, a gap in the market, so I guess, I guess that there's two different gaps. What is the gap between your business model and a business model that will work in the market? You have to experiment, build experiments and shorten that gap so that you can modify your business model to something that fits. Now, there's a second gap, which is what are the gaps that actually exist in the market? Meaning, who are the customers who need or want to have these printed designs? And why is it that the current solutions don't work for them? Because as I said, in the United States for custom designs, I mean, there's custom cat, you can upload your own designs, or a market like Etsy, where any designer can sell whatever products they have as kind of like a marketplace. Those solutions are not available in Korea, and those solutions don't work for all customers. So that would be my question to you, is think about what gap actually exists in the market. Definitely in Korea, there are a lot of custom printing houses, but the question is, what are the interesting things in terms of design and in terms of product? What are the interesting things from the customer's point of view for which they don't currently find a for which they are not currently who are the customers who are unsatisfied right now in the market? That's the real market gap that you should be thinking about. Who is unsatisfied, that is looking for a new solution, and then we can fill that solution. But before we can make progress there, you and your team need to clarify between these two different models, which one is the one that you want to try first and test it. And then if that doesn't work, you can try the other one, or you can pivot into something else. But if you're kind of thinking, oh, we should be a custom printer, or, oh, we should ourselves have our own online store with artists, those are two different businesses. So that's what I would say is first, which one do you think you want to do? You want to make your own online store with designs from artists, or do you want to build a system for custom printing? And then once your team decides which of the two you want to do, come into the one-on-one office hours and I can help you think a little bit about, okay, now how do we find the specific gap in the market that you can test, if you can grow into that gap and validate your product so that you can operate a company there. And I think, the real limitation is going to be I think creativity and hard work of your team, because design is growing so much. And the need for customization and personalization is growing so quickly that there has to be an opportunity in the market. The question is, can your team find it? And can your team develop a solution that works for that specific market?
Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. It is 12:04 now, and today I do have to finish punctually. I gotta get going. I think we covered most of the questions from the people that were here, except for the ones that had kind of asked, but then they weren't listening in. So we can stop here, I think, and we do have the office hours for you guys to sign up for one-on-one. So please keep on working on your problems, and between this week and next week, sign up for a 15-minute session and we can go through any more details. So I hope that this session was useful. I will give both recordings from yesterday and today to the ISIST team, and I really look forward to seeing how your projects come along. Okay, thank you all so much for joining today.
Thank you, Ryu.
All right, have a good afternoon. Bye.